Hello and welcome to this first of quite a few trainings that we're going to be doing for the Cambridge PET or B1 exam. My name is Jody and I've already done an introduction to the exams, which is in another video that I've shared with you. You should probably go and watch that first if you haven't watched this one yet. But that was just an introduction to the exams and generally all of the parts. And today we're going to be focusing on paper 1, the reading task. And we're going to be doing parts 1, 2, and 3. There's 6 parts of it, as you can see from here. In your PDF that I've sent you as well, that's available for download with this training, we are on page 7. So if you want to follow along there, maybe you want to print it out or have it open on your phone or your tablet or another screen, you can do so there. I'll have it here on the screen as well and go through it so you don't have to have it open. So the reading is divided into 6 parts and we can see them here on the screen. Each of them have 5 questions, the first 4 and then 6 questions over there. And the number of marks is 5. So for every question you get 1 point, sorry. So you get 1 point for each correct answer. Now in other exams in the higher levels in B2 and C1, some of them are worth 2 points. You get 2 points for each answer. So in this case, not the problem. So every answer you get 1 point. That's going to come in, it's going to be relevant later on, especially with part 2, but we'll get to that as we go along. So in your PDFs, page 7 is a nice breakdown there for you of all the points. Page 8 then gives you some advice for the teachers in preparing learners. This is stuff that you're going to have to go over on your own. We just don't have time for it in the video. I'll concentrate on other things. But it gives you all the resources here, shows you exactly how to approach the task. Then there's on page 9, the tips for preparing learners for the reading paper. Some tips over here as well on the left for paper-based and for computer-based testing. Like we said in the previous one, computer-based testing is the exact same exam as paper-based. And it's not online. You can't take it online. You still have to go to an exam center, but you'll just have a computer that you'll work on instead of writing on paper. All right. And then on this page as well, very important, a whole bunch of links. All right. So for learners and for teachers, information for candidates. Then there's a vocabulary list as well. You can download that and give it to your students that you're preparing for. Teaching resources, lesson plans. It's all over here and all through all of these links. These are great resources for you to go out on your own and download and study those. Then we also looked at the advice by task in the last video, which we're not going to go over again, because it takes up too much time. It is in the previous video. You can go and watch that video to get all of this. What we're going to do is, here it is for part 3, part 5. We're going to jump straight into the practice exam that they have in this PDF for us to go through. This is on page 13 if you're following along. I'm going to zoom in here quickly just so that we can all see on the screen and have a look at it here. So part 1 of the reading, questions 1 to 5. So in this part, as we've seen before in the previous video, they've broken it down into these little signs, little text messages, things like that you'll have in life, in real life situations. And they've given you the images as well, and they give you the student the images so they can understand, okay, this is a text message, this is a notice in a magazine or something, and here we have a sign on a laboratory door. So it's signs, notices, things like that they've got to be able to read in a real life situation and extract the meaning from them. So we'll start with number 1. This one says, win a car, competition. Entries will only be accepted from people who are at least 18. Language like this is going to pop up, at least. And what we've also got to take note of over here is word spotting and avoiding it at all costs. So word spotting would be, for example, when you see 18 and then the student goes and looks over here and sees 18. Okay, there we go. That's the answer. And circle C. I have the answers next to me. It's not C. All right. So there's a couple of these examples and we'll go through them one by one as well. So the first one here, entries will only be accepted from people who are at least 18. We have 3 options that they need to choose one of. The competition is open to people over a certain age. There is a maximum age limit for this competition. Only 18-year-olds are allowed to enter this competition. All right. So if we look at it, there's at least. So that's the minimum age is 18. It's not maximum age. It's not only 18-year-olds. It is A. The competition is open to people over a certain age. Now, for foreigners to be able, or non-English speakers to be able to gauge meaning from texts like this takes practice. All right. So the more signs they read, the more newspaper articles, the more books, the more TV shows they watch with subtitles and with the audio in English, the better. All right. So let's have a look at number 2. This is a text message. All right. Rachel, for our holiday, you need to get a photo for your visa and let me have it. I've got the visa forms so I can post them then, from Adam. It's important. A lot of the times I found that these students get confused by the names. Maybe because in text messages nowadays, people don't sign their names at the end of it. So that's another issue that you need to consider, that people get confused as to who's speaking and who's the message sent to and who's it sent by. So make that clear to them. So Adam is telling Rachel to post something for him, find out how to do something, or give him something he needs. So he says over here, I can post them. So he's going to do the posting. So he's not asking for somebody to do it for him. So it's not A. B, find out how to do something. All right. Then B, find out how to do something. That seems like it could be an answer over here, and give him something that he needs. So over here, he asked, for our holiday, you need to get a photo for your visa and let me have it. So let me have it is as well, give him something he needs. That's very typical. What they'll do here is they'll not say, give me this thing and then give here as well. So they'll always have 2 different ways of saying it. In the text, it'll be, let me have it. And over here in the answers, it will be, give it to me or give him something. So the answer here is 2C. Make sure that they know different ways on how to say the same thing. Let's look at the third one, a sign on a laboratory door. The public are not permitted beyond this point unless accompanied by a staff member. We see unless here. Unless, if, when. So these are from your conditional sentences. So I sent as well, there's a download of a Google Doc with all the grammar that is going to be required for this level. And this is one of them. Conditional sentences. They have to know 0 conditionals, first conditionals, and second conditionals. They don't need to, they can even probably just get away with the first and the 0. But at this point, unless is going to come up in there. So that's something you have to go over. As well, as I said previously in the previous recording, you're not trying to get your students up to a level of B1 so they can do this test. If they want to take this test, they should already have that level. So they should know some of these things. It's going to be a lot of revision mostly. So the public are not permitted beyond this point unless accompanied by a staff member. So the answers, members of staff must be accompanied. You see again here, we have that word spotting. They'll see accompanied here and accompanied there and go, okay, it's A, and it's not. All right, so discourage word spotting immensely. Members of the public can't go through unless they are visiting someone working here. No, accompanied. Members of the public may go further if a company employee goes with them. So to go with somebody is to accompany them. All right, 2 different ways of saying the same thing. Your answer here is C. Again, practice, practice, practice. Through those links previously that we showed at the beginning, there's a bunch of other downloads that you can give your students and they can just practice these exams and practice them and practice them. Okay, so that's part 1. We've gone over, oh, wait, we've missed a couple of them. Sorry, yeah, on the next one. That's only 3 questions. So question number 4. This is a note left by Tom. So Jane, Mum's leaving really early tomorrow. So could you wake me at 7 when you leave for work? I mustn't be late for college again. Tom. So A, Tom wants to persuade Jane to take him to college tomorrow. Persuade being the key word here. Is he trying to persuade her? Because it does look like he's trying to remind her. Tom would like Jane to do him a favor tomorrow morning. We're getting closer. C, Tom is reminding Jane that they have to get up early tomorrow. The answer obviously being B. So Tom is not reminding her that they have to get up early. She always gets up at 7 to go to work. So the answer here for B. Let's look at number 5. Free copies of advertisements on this board are available from the Careers Center. When we see things like are available, we're talking passive voice now. So we're going to be looking for active voice in this side. So if it's one in the text, it's the other in the questions. So let's look. The Careers Center will give you a copy of any advertisement on this board. That seems pretty good. This board is used to advertise the work done by the Careers Center, possibly, but that's not what this message is saying. If you ask the Career Center, you can advertise for free on this board. Nope, that's not at all what is being mentioned there. So 5A. So here we have an active voice sentence, and here we have a passive voice sentence. All right. Active and passive is another thing that they need to know, and it is also in that Google Doc that is available for download with this free training. Okay, so that's part one. Each one of those is going to give them 1 mark each. I'm going to minimize this a bit because the next one, we need to have both pages open next to each other. So this is where it's important, where you get this 1 point for every answer, because in the previous one, it's pretty simple. It's quite fast. You can go through it quite quickly without wasting too much time. But part 2, there's a lot of reading and a lot of back and forth. All right. So here, perhaps what I did recommend for my slower readers was for them to leave this until the end, because you don't have to do it in order. You can jump around. Just make sure you don't forget to come back to it. That's very, very important. So obviously this one they can leave until the end because it's also 5 questions and only 5 points, but a lot of time goes into this. And this is the one where you're going to have to spend the most amount of time. So what you have to do here in part 2 is you have to match these people and their needs and wants with the perfect option for them. And each one is different. So we have to go and read the instructions. Your students are going to skim over this so much, it's going to drive you mad. The people below all want to visit a city market. Okay. On the opposite page, there are descriptions of 8 markets. Decide which market would be the most suitable for the people below. So we have 5 people and 8 markets, which means 3 of them are in there to confuse the issue. All right, so let's have a look. What I always suggested with my students is that they underline keywords or key ideas in this text. There should be at least 3 in every single one. Sometimes there's 4, but on average about 3. So Jenny wants to buy locally produced food. Okay, that's something unique. Locally produced food, traditional to the area, so we're talking traditional food. She needs somewhere convenient to eat. Okay, so she wants to eat there as well at the market. And she's sightseeing in the city. So she wants to do some sightseeing. They can underline that. The market shouldn't be far from local attractions. Okay, so she wants to do sightseeing that's close to attractions. She wants to eat, and it must be locally produced food that is traditional to the area. All right, so then what the student has to do is to go now look through the markets here, all the different options, and find these things that would suit this lady, Jenny. What does she want? So, for example, we can start with skimming is another practice that your students will have to do, is just go through it quickly. So the Beckfield market is famous for secondhand camera equipment. Okay, I can already tell you now that we're in the wrong place because she wants to eat. She's looking for traditional food, and this is selling camera equipment, cameras, old pictures. Okay, so it's not A. B, they have to go through as well. Amazing building, hundreds of years old, late night opening hours, performers, nothing about food here. Okay, nothing over there about food at all, so that's not going to be the one. There's lots to see, interesting indoor markets. We go through the text with them, find everything from rare gold, silver jewelry. Okay, this is not food, and so on. I can't go through all of this as well, but as you go through it, and we'll jump ahead to what is the answer, and I can show you exactly why. So the answer for 6 is F. All right. Close to museums and art galleries, that local attraction. So close to, so shouldn't be far from, and close to are 2 different ways to say the same thing. Museums and art galleries are local attractions. So this is a place to buy something for lunch. Okay, so as well as fresh fruit and special breads. Try the region's famous cheese. Is this not a traditional food from the area or region? Again, synonyms, area, region. There are producers there with the advice on different types. Eat on the seats situated around the market, so it is convenient to eat there. There's seats there. Watching the colorful scene and enjoying music from local bands. All right, so 6 and F meets all the needs of 6, and that's what we have to look for. What the students should do then, especially if they've got a paper-based, is just cross out F, the letter F, okay? Make sure that they've done this one. They're not going to come back to it and read it again, because if they're doing paper-based, they can write all over this question paper as much as they want, draw pictures, make scribbles, do whatever they want. At the end of the exam, they destroy these papers so they can do whatever they want to them, all right? Scribble all over it. So for number 7, for example, we're going to go through this a bit faster. Matt wants a market where you can get something to wear at reasonable prices. Okay, so this guy's looking for something to wear. So we're going to be looking for words like clothing, all right? Reasonable prices, so not too expensive. is another way of saying it. Something hot to eat. They wouldn't have put hot to eat if it wasn't important. He's also keen on music and likes finding rare recordings by different bands. Okay, so he wants something to wear. He's looking for some food, and he's interested in music and rare recordings. So the student will go through all of these again. I've already done this for your benefit, and it is G. So situated under historic city walls in this busy market, you'll find a huge selection of great value. So there we go. Reasonable prices, great value, new and secondhand clothes. All right. There's also stalls offering unusual albums. So that may be rare recordings by international singers, often hard to find. Okay, if it's hard to find, it's rare. Our world food area allows you to taste food from abroad, cooked in front of you. That's why it's hot to eat, and that's why it meets it. So this is exactly how it goes. We go through it. Okay, all the answers are in the PDF as well. If you skip down to the bottom, I don't remember the page. But for example, I just wanted to break it down to show you exactly. So underline these key words in here, these key ideas, what's specific for this and what is not. Sammy wants to visit a market and spending the day in the city. So he wants to spend the day in the city. He would like to photograph a historic place. Or remember, we saw something about photographs earlier on. So now it becomes easier as you go through it because now the students read some of them before. So 8 is B. All right, because this one talks about late night performers, pictures, and all of those things. I don't want to spend too much time on this going through it, but yeah. Number 9, Alexa is looking for a really special necklace for her grandmother's birthday. So this was one about, wasn't there one about jewelry? Yes. So number 9, C. And number 10, Ella is looking for objects from other countries for her friends. She'd like to choose a secondhand book to read. Okay, so now we're not looking for food, we're looking for secondhand books. And she wants to snack at the market too. So 10 is H. So now, as you see, we have to skip through this quite rapidly. So in an exam, under time pressure, there's a lot of reading to do. And it does start off very slow because you have to, like, for example, number 6 was F. So the student would have to have read A, B, C, D, E, and then only gotten to F. But as we go along, now they've already read that and they remember it, so they can go back and just double check to make sure those are the answers. Okay? Let's skip down then to part 3. So this will be the last part we're covering in this video, and then we'll be doing another video with parts 4, 5, and 6, just so that we can have a more manageable task. All right, so now we know about this one. In part 3, we have a much longer text, and we have now 5 questions again, and we have to choose multiple choice, A, B, C, or D. We know from the previous video as well that question 11 is in the first paragraph. Question 12 is second paragraph. Question 13, third paragraph. Question 14, fourth paragraph. They go in order of the text, but question 15 is a general question about the whole text itself. In this case, it's what would be a good introduction to this article, and then the student has to choose, the exam taker has to choose the correct title or introduction for this article. But that happens because you have to read the whole article first, so we'll leave it until last. Now, there's a couple of ways you can approach this. They can read, now that we know that paragraph 1 is question 11, you could do it paragraph by paragraph. Read this one first, then go over to 11 and answer that, then that, then that. Or you can read the whole thing to get a general idea and then go back again. But as I said, time is an issue. If the person is a fast reader, there's no worries. But of course, that's not everybody, and especially in a second language. So let's have a look at this and see how we can find these artists. Well, these questions. Artist Peter Fuller talks about his hobby. So we're talking about an artist who has a hobby. So there's a popular idea that artists are not supposed to be into sport, but mountain biking is a huge part of my life. It gets me out of my studio and into the countryside. But more importantly, racing along as fast as you can leaves you no time to worry about anything that's going on in your life. You're too busy concentrating on not crashing. The only things you pay attention to are the pain in your legs and the rocks on the path in front of you. All right, so that's the introductory text. We go number to 11. So Peter enjoys mountain biking because it gives him the opportunity to enjoy the views. He can use the time to plan his work. He is able to stop thinking about his problems, or it helps him to concentrate better. There was a line in here. But more importantly, so here, by mountain biking is a huge, it lets me get out of my studio and into the countryside, which may give people the idea that it gives him the opportunity to enjoy the views in the countryside. But that's all speculation, all right? Because later on, it doesn't say anything about views. We're just assuming the countryside has beautiful views. And this is a thing that happens a lot. Students projecting their own ideas and experiences onto the text and not reading the words precisely. It has to be very, very logical. And also after this, it says, but more importantly. So all of that was blah, blah, blah. Now we come to the important side of things, all right? Racing along as fast as you can leaves you no time to worry about anything that's going on in your life. So C, he is able to stop thinking about his problems, all right? So that's very important as well, to have that. Don't project your experiences on this. So maybe when the student goes mountain biking, they look at the views and they think, oh, that's the answer. But it is not, all right? So they have to be very careful and look out for, but more importantly. All right, so first paragraph, 11C. Let's look at the next paragraph. I'm in my 60s now, but I started cycling when I was a kid. In the summer, my friends and I would ride our bikes into the woods and see who was brave enough to go down the steep hills or do big jumps. The bikes we had then were not built for that and often broke. So I used to draw pictures of bikes with big, thick tires and would be strong enough for what we were doing. They looked just like modern mountain bikes. However, it wasn't until many years later that someone actually invented one. By the 1980s, they were everywhere. Okay, so we're going back to his youth and all the way up until the 80s, and now where the modern mountain bike is. All right, so in number 12, what does Peter say about cycling during his childhood? Okay, so where was he? He started cycling when he was a kid, and they used to do all these crazy jumps with his friends. The bikes weren't built for that, and they often broke. Okay, and that's about his childhood. So he is sorry he didn't take more care of his bike. No, I don't think that is the case at all. It doesn't say anything about that. His friends always had better quality bikes than he did. We weren't talking about the quality. The bikes we had then weren't built for that and often broke. So all of them had the same quality bikes. So its friends didn't have better quality. His bike wasn't suitable for the activities. I think we have a winner. And D, he was more interested in designing bikes than riding them. No. He was most definitely not. He drew pictures as a kid, but he wasn't designing them. So it's C. His bike wasn't suitable for the activities. It says here, weren't built for that and often broke. All right. So it's important as well. Like we found the answer in C. It doesn't mean you stop reading. Read D, because this one may as well, or you may be projecting your own ideas again onto it. So read all the questions and then, okay, now we've double checked it isn't D. We can go back and mark C. All right. Let's have a look now at the next one. At that time, I was into skateboarding. I did that for a decade until falling off onto hard surfaces started to hurt too much. Mountain biking seemed a fairly safe way to keep fit, so I took it up instead. I made a lot of friends and got involved with racing, which gave me a reason to train hard. I wanted to find out just how fit and fast I could get, which turned out to be fairly quick. I even won a couple of local races. Okay, so Peter says he returned to cycling after several years. Because he had become unfit so that he could enter races in order to meet new people and to replace an activity he had given up. So because he had become unfit, there was something about fitness. Mountain biking seemed a fairly safe way to keep fit. So I took that up instead. But wait a minute. So I took that up instead of what? Instead of skateboarding, which brings me to 13D, to replace an activity he had given up. So he didn't do it to keep fit. He was already keeping fit with skateboarding, but he gave that up because he was hurting himself too much. So he had to replace it with an activity. And it's D. So in order to meet new people, is that the reason he did it? I made a lot of friends and I got involved in racing. It's an offhand comment of making friends. It's not the reason he did it, to meet new people. And so that he could enter races. No, I even won a couple of local races. All right. So he got involved in racing. Again, an offhand comment, which is not the reason he did it. So what is the reason he returned to it? And that was to replace an activity, which was skateboarding. All right. So there's a lot. This one's a bit of a tricky one there. All those things are mentioned in the text, but they are not the reason that he changed. So let's look at the last one, 14. In the end, I stopped racing, mainly because I knew what it could mean to my career if I had a bad crash. But I still like to do a 3-hour mountain bike ride every week. And if I'm out cycling in the hills and I see a rider ahead, I have to beat them to the top. As I go past, I imagine how surprised they would be if they knew how old I am. So 14, how does Peter feel about cycling now? So here we are in the last paragraph. He is proud that he is still so fast. He is keen to do less now that he is older. He regrets the fact that he can no longer compete. He wishes more people were involved in the sport. I think I'm leaning towards A. He is proud that he's still so fast, because when he sees somebody, he has to beat them to the top. And as I go past, so he's going past other younger drivers, so he is still very fast. And he imagines how surprised they must be. But, all right, well, we've been through this before. We know we must look at the other ones. He's keen to do less now that he's older. He never mentions that. He still does a 3-hour mountain bike ride every week. That's pretty regular. He regrets the fact that he can no longer compete. He never mentions that. Mainly because I knew it could mean to the end of my career if I had a bad crash. All right. He just didn't want to have a bad crash. He didn't regret it. He wishes more people would get involved in the sport. I don't think he mentioned anything about that at all. So, okay, we're correct. 14A. And then we have to do 15, which is based on the entirety of the text. What would be a good introduction to this article? For Peter Fuller, nothing matters more than mountain biking, not even his career. No, he talked about how he was going to get hurt and how he had to stop. Here in his words, he tells us why, so we're going to discard A. B, artist Peter Fuller takes mountain biking pretty seriously. Yeah, he does. Here he describes how it all began and what he gets out of it. Well, that's pretty spot on, I would say. He does talk about his childhood and how it all began and breaking the bikes and the design and then changing from skating and all of that, and what he gets out of it. Like, he gets fitness out of it. He gets to surprise people as he races by them up hills. All right, so B looks pretty good, but let's not stop there. In this article, Peter Fuller explains how he became an artist only as a result of his interest in mountain biking. He did not say that at all. I can't even find anything in the text that relates to that. All right. And D, after discovering mountain biking later in life, Peter Fuller gave up on art. No. Okay, so we're going to already stop there. He never once mentions in this text that he gave up art to become a mountain biker. All right. So I think we go back to our original B, which if you look in the question and we look at the answer sheets here, we can skip down. At the bottom, there's the assessment on page 18. You can find all of the answers as well. And we are 15B. That is correct. Okay, so those are the first 3 parts of this that we have time for in this video.